is Jessica Butts. No, I am not in my home. I've got a chair here for a special guest. I am with my mastermind group, so sorry about the echoey. It's funny, I didn't have anything to prepare for today because I wrote a damn book on it and I know what I'm talking about, but setting everything up was a total nightmare, like the lighting and the echoing and all the sound and all the stuff. So I'm excited to be with you today on day 4 of the Don't Do Stuff You Suck At book club. I've got my beach sweater on. I'm here at my mastermind group. It now became very, very loud in this room. Sara Dean is going to be joining us today as we discuss thinking and feeling. So it was so quiet this morning. I get up super early. I'm like a 5 a.m. waker-upper, and it was just silent. And then I was like, it's about to get real loud in here. So here we are, and we're going to be doing this. We've got Instagram Live here and Facebook Live here, and let's get started. So,
hi, Jen.
Oh, yay. Oh, look, you're already, this is good. You can oh, yeah. Okay, good.
I see my people.
Oh, yeah. Her people, Shameless Mom Con. So why don't you introduce yourself? This is weird, I guess.
It's weird because you are cute, and I literally rolled out of bed 7 minutes ago.
And I gave her no prep time for this, by the way. This is how my brain thinks. I text you like 10 minutes ago. She's like, hey, do you want to be on my Facebook Live? She's like, oh my God, can I be in my pajamas? I was like, obviously. So here you are. Thank you.
Hi.
Very nice of her. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to go
over. You want me to introduce myself?
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
We assume everyone knows us, right? But maybe.
Actually, I should probably introduce myself too, but why don't you start? Oh my God, hi, start.
So I'm Sara Dean, and I'm the host of the Shameless Mom Academy podcast, and that's that. And
you are an ENFJ.
Yes, ENFJ.
Very strong ENFJ.
Yes.
Yeah. Except on the S and the N.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely a little borderline there. But Jessica told me when we talked about this a long time ago, Jessica, I said, I don't know that I'm that strong of an E. And you were like, oh no, you're the giver. And I went right home and told my husband, I'm like, I'm the giver.
Oh, yeah. It does. It
like I gotta
right?
I'm a giver.
I know.
I'm the most giving of all the personality types. And let's just take a moment for that.
Okay, that's funny. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for following along. Day 4, Don't Do Stuff You Suck At book club. Thank you for everybody enrolling. If you're already on my list, Stephanie reminded me, you don't need to go back and get on my list. We're emailing these out. I'm going to be deleting all of this week tomorrow because I'm trying to get you on my list. I'm just going to be transparent with you. So to get the recordings, to get the handouts, to get all the stuff, go over to jessicabutts.com. We will email that out to you and send you all the goodies when I'm speaking at things like Shameless Mom Con that just happened. All the stuff, you'll find out all the things that are happening. But today is chapter 4, and it is about thinking and feeling. And the reason that I asked Sara to come on, for most of you know, I'm single, and so I don't have a relationship currently to talk about this. And I thought, what a fun thing to talk to Sara about. So she is a pretty strong feeler, I would say, and her husband Vince is a kind of a mild thinker. And so I think she can give us some good perspective on what it's like for two different personality types to come together. Because here's the deal. So I'm going to give a little bit of background. This is all about how we make decisions. So thinkers make decisions with their heads, to oversimplify it, and feelers make decisions with their hearts. And when you think about all of the decisions that you make in a day with your son, with all of the things going on in a business, I think feelers can come off as a little flaky. And I'm over that bullshit. So this was actually yesterday's topic. I think I'm just full of sass and vinegar this entire week, because this is what happened yesterday. Is I was talking about, I believe that sensors and thinkers end up winning conversations, arguments, discussions, things like that, because they're more logical. And so thinkers make decisions in a more logical, practical way, just like sensors do. And intuitives and feelers, which is what we're talking about today, the second functional pair, we make decisions with our intuition. And today's topic is about we make them with our hearts. So to thinkers, that can seem, I don't know, give me some words. Sara can read the words. What are the words? I think the words are flaky, ridiculous, this doesn't make sense, you're not being logical. You got any words?
I would say too emotional. Like I cry if I'm angry, I cry. If I'm happy, I cry. If I'm annoyed, I cry. So this is like problematic in the workplace more than in my marriage. I mean, when I used to have a boss a lifetime ago, but like if I had any sort of emotion and I had to talk to a boss, I was like crying, and then I felt really like a dumb little girl.
Oh, yeah.
So in my marriage, it doesn't show up. I mean, I still cry, but I don't feel that.
He doesn't judge it.
But I don't feel little in that sense. But in the workplace, I really feel like that, the emotional side that comes with it, and to be triggered to tears by by like all emotion.
Yeah. And we've been, for those of you who have read the book, anybody who's been following me knows that there is no right and wrong type. There just isn't. We're over judging it. There's no right or wrong answer to any of this stuff. However, through the years of doing this and the research and my findings, looking at couples and talking to friends and things like that, watching this as a coach, is that I believe that, again, the sensors and the thinkers logic us out of our dreams. And so I even wrote down a quote this morning. I wrote down, "You don't get to logic me out of my dream." And I think that showed up yesterday I was sassy yesterday, talking about sensing and intuition, and that the intuitives, we have these dreams, we want to sell our business, we want to start a podcast, we want to like do these things that seem illogical and dreamy and full of fantasy, yet it doesn't mean that we can't succeed. And Sara and I believe, are both good examples of that. So do you mind sharing a little bit about how that conversation went with Vince, about when you primarily sold your gym, and then when we were talking about it a little bit last night, drinking wine, like what was that like for you to come and say, by the way, I want to leave a super lucrative job. Same thing happened in my marriage. I want to quit this lucrative job, go back to graduate school, incur $50,000 worth of debt, be a therapist. I have no idea what that looks like, how I'm going to make money, any of the thing, but I know that I'm going to succeed. So my struggle was fucking real. Like it was not, he tried to logic me out of my dream. And since then, obviously I've done it because I've worked really hard and done all the hustle, but I'm curious what your experience was.
Yeah, so I owned a gym here in Seattle, and I wanted to sell the gym so that I could go full-time into the podcast, build a business around the podcast, and just be more invested in that community. And when I told my husband that, he was like, well, like I had been in the fitness industry for 15 years at the time and had really stable income. So he's like, I'm a little nervous about you walking away from this thing that you built that's like, it's a well-oiled machine at this point. And so he's like, I'm a little worried about that. But he said, if anyone can make it work, you can. And in my mind, like I have this very firm belief that anyone can be Oprah. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go be Oprah, and I mean, it's going to be fine. And he was like, okay.
But that does say a lot about your relationship, because the majority of the people that I work with that I hear this same thing, especially around the thinking and feeling, is that they get logicked out of it. Like, I need to see the numbers. I need to see all the stuff. I need to see the facts. And at that point, I didn't have all the facts, and you certainly didn't have the facts. And how am I going to make money off of a podcast? Yet your response is, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. And I think at that point, I had a track record of building things and making them work. And so that helped. And I think that when you've been together for a long enough time, that can be a big piece of it. But I also think on the flip side of that, when you've been together for a long time, that you also can get really set in your ways around certain things. And so like we had a blowout when Vinny, my son, was really little, around the paper piles on the dining room table. And like, I mean, it's like the closest we've ever come to divorce. My son, I had like a 2-month-old, and he was, Vince, my husband, comes to me and he's like, I really need you to do something with the papers on the piles on the dining room table. And I was like, well, if this is a problem, it's going to be probably 18 years before I clean the table. Like, the only things I care about right now are keeping the child alive and keeping my business alive. Like, that's all I can manage. And he thought that I was being like, first of all, I thought he was being so insensitive that he would even ask me to clean things off the dining room table when I'm trying to take care of this newborn. And he was like, he thought I was being disrespectful to our like community area in the household. And I was like, what are you even talking about? So I was hysterical in tears. And I was like, if this is a problem, we should just get divorced now. Like, this will never be, the dining room table, paper pile will never be a priority for me. And in his mind, he had this like really logical like thinking around the whole thing about like, well, this is community space, and if you make a mess,
So logical.
and I was like, do you know that I'm sleeping like 45 minutes a night?
Yeah.
Like, and so my feelings were so hurt because I was like, you don't see what I'm doing. Like, and we were just completely on different pages, and we still to this day struggle with those kinds of things around the household, like where he'll be like, I just need you could you maybe do this thing over here and this thing? And I'm like, but you don't even see that I'm doing all these other things and I'm working so hard. So yeah.
I think where I want to go with this now too, so I've got a lot of notes here, but I think, and I knew this would just organically happen. So most of my clients at some point or another say, how do I learn how to navigate this if I'm married? And you and I are a good example. So I did not navigate it well because we had a plethora of other issues, and we were on the way out when I kind of started to be apologetically who I was and lean into who I was and start speaking up and went back to graduate school and building a business, all of those things. So we were not in a good enough place to sit down as two loving people and have this conversation. So ours was strife with, I'm right, you're wrong. You're being condescending, you're being ridiculous, you're killing my dream. Like, that's not a way to have a conversation with somebody that you love and want to be in a relationship with. And at the time, I don't think either one of us were in a good enough place to have a loving conversation. So I'm curious what you've learned over the years of how Vince, her son's name is Vinny, and her husband's name is Vince, and I do that sometimes, how Vince learned how to speak your language and how you have learned how to speak his language in terms of this dichotomy of him needing logic and you just being like, babe, I'm just going to figure it out. So what have you learned over the years? I think this is a huge topic for people.
Oh, this is such a good question because I haven't really thought it through.
Do you want me to keep talking until you?
No. Okay. So I think a lot of it, he really, really trusts me, and we give each other a lot of independence. And so, I mean, I would say we both trust each other. He trusts me, and so this is an interesting piece. He trusts me and he elevates me, whereas I trust him and I often eye roll him. And so I have to catch myself, and when so I am more the person in our relationship that's like, I'm right, you're wrong. And so I actually I take his lead on a lot of things to consider, like he gets frustrated with things with me for sure, but I try to take his lead and I roll him less and see where he's at more.
Can I say something about that? Yeah. Okay, so she just said something super, super powerful about we trust each other. So as a coach, I'm just going to say I see this a lot, that there's women that come up with these, I'm just going to say, somewhat cockamamie ideas. And I'm all about a cockamamie idea. If I think starting a freaking podcast, quitting your job, starting a podcast with no plan is a little cockamamie. I'm not going to lie. However, you've got to have a plan. So I know you know this, so I'm talking to you guys. Do you know that what trust is? It's not about trusting, like people get all this, like trusting is about him not cheating on you. Like that's such a small part of what trust is. Trust is when your partner says they're going to do something, you do it. So if you say, I'm going to work 40 hours a week, or I'm going to hustle my ass off, or I'm going to write a business plan, or I'm going to get really clear about how I'm going to make money, that builds trust. So Vince saw that you had a track record of, I can trust her. If she says she's going to do this thing, her past performance has predicted her future performance. Right. And I love, I love all my ENFPs and the Ps out there, but a lot of times they have all these ideas. Hi guys. They have all these ideas, yet they don't have a plan. And so tomorrow, actually, we're going to end up talking about why the plan is so important, because it's based off of, I think what you're saying right now, Sarah, is that I'm all like, you're
I didn't want to
I look
your
huge.
Spotlight.
No, and I'm like, I look ginormous. Like, come up here closer. That's so funny. But that is a very important piece, is that, and then trust builds respect as well. And a lot of people say, well, you just need to. Well, I actually don't know if that's true. Like, unconditional love is, again, I referenced Dax Shepard's podcast the other day with Esther. Dude.
So good.
It was 45 minutes of the best marriage advice I've ever heard in my entire life. So Esther Perel and Dax Shepard, armchair expert, and he talks about unconditional love is bullshit. Like if you expect expect your client, he calls his kids fucking assholes, which I think is I cackled when I like out loud when I heard that. But he's really true. Like you gotta show up. You can't be entitled. You can't sit around and think, oh, you better just love me. I'm gonna be a total like bitch and I'm gonna be, we're so off topic right now, but like you gotta be like thinking, and I'm not gonna be a good person, and I'm gonna just show up, and you need to love me unconditionally, and I'm gonna be flaky, and I'm gonna start this business and do this and be all over the place, yet you're not trying. I think he says it really like eloquently, like you don't get to just show up like that.
Right.
Okay, any other thoughts on that?
On
about you guys building trust and being able to communicate effectively. So it obviously took trusting each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think also recognizing how we process. So this actually, I mentioned this a little bit last night, and this isn't necessarily like the dichotomy between thinking and feeling, but that I'm a fast processor and he's a slow processor.
Oh, totally.
And
yeah,
that
big one.
gets real hard for me sometimes. Because we'll be planning something or talking something through. I'm like always 3 steps. Like I'm thinking to my third point in the conversation that's going to happen in 7 minutes. And he's still back here 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so that gets really challenging sometimes.
So I'm guessing some of you are already wondering, like, what is that dichotomy? It's a little bit of the introvert and extrovert for sure. Is Vincent introvert?
He is, I believe he's an introvert. I believe he tests as an introvert, but I see him as an extrovert.
But because he's your husband.
Yeah.
And you're very extroverted, so he might just be less extroverted than you. But what she's saying is that introverts have internal processing time, and you are like a super ENFJ.
Yes.
You are all about like, let's go, what are you doing? Come on, let's talk, make a fucking decision, like let's get going. It's very your energy, which makes you very successful.
So we actually got in a fight recently on date night because I'm an external processor, and so we were trying to make plans for the next morning for skiing, and I spent the whole date night trying to like figure out this plan and texting someone who was going to be with us the next day, trying to like finalize the details for the ski trip. And we got home and he's like, I just wanted to relax tonight. And he basically told me I ruined the night. And I was like, he's like, your level of stress gave me stress and it ruined our date night. And I was like, my level of stress? I was like, I wasn't stressed out tonight, but I was externally processing everything we were going to do the next day. Yeah. And he's like, I just wanted to relax.
And you're in planning mode. And this is interesting. This is where what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So maybe you'll join me again tomorrow. I don't know. But this is, in fact, all these bitches here should join us tomorrow because we're all a bunch of like driven, masculine energy, like go-getter, like get out of my way kind of thing. And tomorrow, that's what we're going to talk about is this need for this balance between between being and doing. And this is totally what you're talking about is this kind of drivey, like intense energy versus the people, oftentimes the people around us just want like, can you be present in the moment and not always like,
no, I can't.
You can, you need to work on it. I'm working on it. I tattooed it on my freaking arm for an example. Okay. So let's just transition because I realized we're like, yes.
So you asked like how we deal with us being different in the dichotomy.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're different in the dichotomy. So recognizing when I'm in the middle of something and he's glazing over, being like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm 17 steps ahead and he's not caught up, so I need to like chill the F out. Yeah. So that's how I manage the differences in any of the dichotomies is recognizing what they are as they start showing up. Yeah.
And I could have paid you to say that because that's the perfect answer. I mean, that's why I'm at 7 a.m. in someone else's house. I mean, I would have loved to have slept in today, but I'm doing this for that exact reason is that I want people to know this about themselves. I want you to go into your business knowing what you're good at, what you suck at, don't do stuff you suck at, to be a better parent. I mean, so Sarah has Shameless Mom Academy in her event and talks to parents about being the best parent possible based on your personality type. And then also in your relationships, like putting your own oxygen mask on first, knowing this is who I am, knowing I'm a control freak, knowing I'm emotional, knowing I'm big picture, knowing you're extroverted, and then sitting down with your spouse or your child or somebody in your business and saying, okay, this is what I got going on. What do you got going on? And how do we navigate this? And how do we do this together? How do we understand this is who I am and yet who you are? And that is the perfect answer, because I believe this is one of the biggest issues in all relationships. And again, Dax Shepard, I think, did an amazing job talking about it on that podcast, is that we get our validation from what our partner, like, what did he say? Like, we get our validation and our identity from our person. And yet, instead of just letting them be who they are and letting you be who you are, and having your separate time and sitting down across from Vince or whoever's in your life and just going like, I totally love you for who you are. You drive me fucking crazy, but I love you for who you are. And then that needs to be reciprocated. When a relationship can get to that level, I just think you're in real good shape. Because John, go ahead.
We joke a lot about, like, I mean, the way he goes through airport security, I can't. So I'm like, I'll take Vinny. I will take all the luggage. I will take everything. You do whatever that thing is that you do in airport security that takes you 30 minutes. Like, you just do that. I'll meet you at the gate. So we joke about these things. We know where our differences lie. And so we can kind of just give each other a hard time about it. And instead of it becoming a point of contention, I mean, I'm not saying this is perfect. There are points of contention sometimes. But instead of things constantly becoming points of contention, instead we can look at, like, where's the joke in this, in our differences?
Yes.
And how can we work around that? And so now it's like a lot of like sarcasm and banter and that kind, rather than like, oh, I hate going through security with you at the airport.
Because not only is it a choice, you've made a choice, you have a child together, you love each other, you've made a choice to get married and build a life together. But then it also goes a step further, as instead of who wants to be irritated every day, right? Like, who wants to be in a negative mindset or be irritated or be frustrated instead of being in love and being joking and being jovial about it? Like, it's such different energy that you guys are able to have when you just say, oh, okay, we're just different. This is how this is about to go. And again, not everybody is like us. This is what we do. We expect everyone to make emotional decisions. We expect everyone to be like us versus accepting people for who they are.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I could go into a whole nother topic right now, but I don't think I'm going to. Okay. I think I'm going to end this here because I think this was a really great discussion. The thing that I was going to talk about, which I'm just going to let you read, is the other 25%. Actually, I'm going to talk about it. Hold on. Stay tuned. So the other 25% are the thinking women and the feeling men. So society, as well as just gender, is a huge part of this dichotomy. So John Gray wrote a super famous book that's made him a gazillionaire back in the 80s. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And he doesn't talk about this per se, but he does talk about how we are genetically made up differently. So roughly 75% of men are thinkers and roughly 75% of women are feelers. However, society also plays a huge factor, right? Women are supposed to be soft and feminine and whatever, all the feely emotional things. And men are supposed to be like gruff and rough and all the things. And then and my whole thing is, what if you're not? Or what if you're in a heterosexual relationship and the opposite is true, which I have found to be almost 100% true, that typically a thinking woman ends up with a feeling man. And then in homosexual relationships, almost always they're opposite types. Because isn't that fascinating?
So interesting.
I actually, if I ever go do like real nerdy research, this is what I will research about what the actual statistics are on how many opposites attract, because the reality is opposites attract. So back in caveman days, we go out looking for someone to complete us, to help us navigate the world together, to help us make decisions better. Yet, what happens then is we get married or we have a long-term relationship, and then that stuff starts to drive us crazy versus looking at it as, wow, this is a great way to tackle life together, is that you're super logical, I'm super emotional, let's go be superheroes together in the world, and seeing it as a positive. And so you're raising a son,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of, is he a thinker or a feeler, do you know? Is he logical or hardy?
I think he'll probably be a thinker.
Oh, okay. Well, you know he already is one or the other.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so feeling men, so I'm dating one right now, so I'm just gonna, I don't like to talk about him, but I will use this as an example. So he grew up in Texas with a bunch of like gruff men. And he is like a music composer and arty and just very sensitive. And so when he grew up in that environment, he felt his entire life like, oh my God, I don't belong here. What's wrong with me? I'm a weirdo. Like, people call me gay, but I'm not gay. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And then women, conversely, thinking women are only 25% of the population and feeling men are only 25% of the population. As I talked about yesterday, intuitives are only 25% of the population. So we all these people grow up feeling very marginalized, very misunderstood. And the women end up having that feeling of they get called bitches and they get called you're short and curt and what's wrong with you and I don't really like you and why can't you be more like me, whatever. And again, it's this very judgmental way of perceiving people versus just being in a place of acceptance and knowing that not all boys are going to be thinkers, not all girls are going to be feelers. And what do we do to sit down and understand them and encourage that behavior? So as a coach for moms, do you have any insight on that? Or
so I would say so one thing that's come up in my group. So I have a membership community for my podcast listeners, and this has come up recently where we have in our group one couple that is, or more than one, I'm sure, but one who's talked about it most recently, where the wife is the thinker and the husband's the feeler.
Yes, this happens. Opposites attract.
Right. And then we have another couple where there's two thinkers, husband and wife, both thinkers.
Oh.
And so it's been interesting to hear their experience. But what's been fun is that the woman where we have the woman thinker and the the male feeler, she has been asking the rest of the group, like, how do I manage this emotional husband?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do with this? And we think it's like so funny and so interesting because all of us are feelers. So I've seen it come up in that context. And I think that for her, the beauty of that has been in seeing how, for her, recognizing it for what it is and shifted her marriage. And then she took it a step further and she's been able to recognize that as a thinking mom, she doesn't always see her children, especially her daughter, who's a feeler. She doesn't always see her daughter the way that is in her daughter's best interest.
Yes.
And so she has pushed her daughter in a lot of ways over the years, using her thinking mom brain, pushed her daughter in a lot of ways that haven't really worked. And she's tried to do all this logical stuff around, especially related to some learning disabilities. And it's been really challenging in their relationship and not very successful.
Yep.
And so now she's had to step back and really look at, okay, if I'm a thinker and my daughter's a feeler and these are the things we're up against, how can we work on this together and actually like accomplish something rather than just constantly butting heads.
Yep.
So that's been probably the biggest gift in her seeing the dichotomies at play in her relationships and parenting. For me, I would say for me, I just watch the way my child internalizes and processes things.
Yes.
And so I actually just learned this recently, and I'm trying to remember the context of like who I was talking to about it, but I want to constantly push my child to talk about his feelings because I want to have a very emotionally intelligent male. Like I have this big thing about I'm raising a white male.
Yes.
I have a lot of feelings about that. And I feel a tremendous sense of responsibility about giving another white male to the universe because I think we have more than enough of them. And so I'm like, what do I do with this? But so what I'm constantly doing is trying to make him talk about his feelings. And especially when he's like in something emotional, I will try to make him talk about his feelings. And he's 6.5 and he does not, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And he like, he's like, I want to go to bed.
Oh, yes.
Like, he wants to run away whenever I bring up feelings. I mean, this will be like at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And so what I've had to learn is that I can't push him in that way because it pushes him away.
Yes.
And instead, I have to find other ways to get him to talk about his feelings because it's still really important to me. So now we do it instead, like at bedtime, I will say to him again, no. So this is my secret to getting anyone to expose anything is no eye contact, like driving, running, walking,
yes,
or in the dark.
So take this as a tip. Everything she's saying, understand who they are, and then don't like bombard them, or I call it ambushing. Like don't ambush them. Go for a walk. This is good.
Right.
Yeah.
So I used to be like, come sit on. I mean, even though he's 6.5, still like, sit on my lap and let's talk about feelings. And he was like, I want to go to bed.
Yeah.
And so now when we at bedtime at night, at a normal bedtime, we put him to bed, or I put him to bed, and with the lights off, and we will have already read stories, and he has music playing, and then I'll say, and we talk about either one or two things. I'll say, is there anything you were grateful for today, or any feelings you had that you want to tell me about?
Oh,
and this
so
is what we do every night now. And it's super cute, first of all, and it gives me all this insight. And there's sometimes where things are repeated multiple nights in a row or whatever, but he now can identify what gratitude is. He can talk about what he's happy about. He doesn't often pull out the negative feelings that sometimes I'm hoping he will if he's had a hard day, but he's able to identify and label feelings. He's able to identify gratitude. So in that sense, I'm trying to have him access his feeling side.
Good.
Even though he spends most of his time in his Lego building thinking side.
So good. And so I'm going to wrap this up for a couple minutes over here. That was all brilliant. And so people ask me all the time, like, how do I do this? How do I communicate with my other type child, or my other type spouse or partner? And here's the deal. It is not a simple answer. I mean, people want me to just like write it out for them, and it just doesn't work that way, or someone would have written that book. I've been doing it in my head for probably 5 years about how you come to this discussion. So if you want to know more, come over to the Front Seat Life community, because this is what we're doing. These are the kinds of topics and questions that we're answering, where I can answer your specific questions. Obviously on a podcast, both of us know you can't do that. You're not having a conversation. And right now there's 88 new comments. I will try very, very hard to get to all of those, but that's going to be hard as well. So if you want to come play, the link is in somewhere over here. Come play with us. And then come tomorrow. It's day 5. Tomorrow's going to be fucking epic. I'm going to be talking about the judging and perceiving. This is going to be the Front Seat Life Summer Challenge. We're going to go crazy talking about balancing the J and the P. So not just always being flitty and flighty in the summer energy, but like maintaining, getting some stuff done, but also not being quite as J as Sarah, of like, I'm going to do this thing right now when I'm sitting with my husband and having a good time. Like, love you. How do you balance this dichotomy of in between? Like, how do you learn how to compartmentalize being present in the moment and also getting some stuff done in your business and in your life? So thank you for joining us. Thank you. That was super nice of her to do this. Okay, I'm going to end over here, and then I'm going to end here. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.